My wife allowed her parents to stay at our house for months, but I'm not staying in that house and I asked for a divorce. This is about the in-laws again. I'm 49 years old and I've been married to Chelsea, who is 44, for 20 years. So we're not exactly newlyweds. We have a 19-year-old daughter who moved into university 3 weeks ago. Chelsea came to me and told me her parents would be visiting for a week. I had reservations about them. Not that I'm an unreasonable husband, it's just that my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, aren't exactly my favorite people. I love my wife, and after 2 decades of marriage, I'd say we've built a solid relationship, but her mother, oh my God, has never been a fan of me since the day we got engaged. She made it very clear she thought her daughter could have done better than me. In fact, my wife is extremely beautiful, with a slim figure, sharp features, and a natural charm. The way she carries herself is simply amazing. I adore her, not only for her beauty, but as a person. The only thing that bothers me is how she lets her mother interfere in our lives. My mother-in-law thinks Chelsea deserved someone better, someone more handsome and definitely a lot wealthier than me. She's that materialistic, and it's not an opinion she's kept to herself in her empty head. In fact, she's expressed it more than she should, even saying it in front of my parents, which made them feel very uncomfortable. She always says it as if I were a loser, out of shape, lucky to have married her daughter. Every time we saw each other, she would bring it up. Chelsea takes good care of herself. You should do the same. You don't want to look bad next to her. Once my daughter had a heated argument with my mother-in-law when she said that I should make myself worthy of Chelsea. Yes, she really said that in front of my daughter, who didn't stay quiet and answered her. Chelsea tried to fix the situation and apologized on her mother's behalf, but the damage had already been done a long time ago. I've long accepted that my mother-in-law and I would never get along, so I treated her like the plague. We had minimal interactions. I barely visited. They only came on special occasions or holidays. We simply coexisted for Chelsea's sake. So, when Chelsea told me that her parents' house had plumbing issues and they needed to stay with us, I wasn't thrilled. I mean, a week is a long time to have your in-laws staying at your house. Chelsea insisted that they had nowhere else to go. After several days of discussion, I told myself, it's only a week. I can hold out for a few days. Maybe I can even mark the days on the wall like one of those prisoners. I let them stay, but after a week, they were still here, with no signs of leaving. I casually asked Chelsea, and she told me there was more work to do on the pipes. I took a deep breath and thought, okay, just one more week. But soon I was running out of space on the wall. Then they needed another week because the contractor discovered mold, and the house needed fumigation. I suggested to Chelsea that she put them in a hotel because I was already fed up with living with them. She responded that hotels weren't suitable for elderly people and it would look bad on our part to move them for just one more week. I told her I didn't care about looking bad. She promised she'd keep her mother under control and wouldn't let her interfere in our lives. But my mother-in-law is just unbearable. She can't breathe without sticking her nose into my business. Chelsea convinced me it would only be one more week and that her parents would leave us alone for their birthdays and holidays over the next 2 years. That sweetened the deal since it seemed fair to have them around for the holidays. It's a headache. If they were pleasant people, I would have welcomed them, but they're insufferable. The longer they stayed, the less it felt like my house. The first week, my mother-in-law kept quiet. In the second week, she started rearranging the living room furniture and changing the kitchen towels for the ones she liked. My father-in-law was more tolerable, a quiet man who spent his days watching TV, reading the newspaper, and taking long naps. He didn't bother me much, but his presence made me feel like my space was being invaded. Everything got worse when I noticed that my beer stash in the garage was decreasing. I always kept it stocked, but suddenly, a 6-pack of beer would turn into just 1 bottle overnight. At first, I thought it was the teenage son of my neighbor again. A few months ago, he snuck into my garage to take a bottle of wine. I caught him, and he promised not to do it again. I was about to talk to his parents when, one night after work, I saw my father-in-law drinking my last cold beer. So it was him, and I had wrongly blamed that boy. I didn't get upset. Instead, I calmly told him it was mine. Without batting an eye, he looked at me and said, "You have more." I corrected him. "I didn't have more until you drank it all." He shrugged and took another sip. "Relax. It's just beer." Yes, It was just beer, but I wouldn't have minded if he'd at least had the courtesy to ask me instead of draining my supply. 3 weeks should have ended tomorrow. Today I reminded Chelsea that her parents should be preparing to leave. She told me it would be a couple of days more. Honestly, I'm so fed up I'm about to kick them out of my house. Update 1: things have gotten a lot worse. I don't even want to start talking about how my mother-in-law is ruining my marriage. Chelsea barely has time for me. Most weekends she has plans with her mom, shopping, movies, or just sitting on the couch for hours gossiping. Even during the week after work, she prefers to be with her mom instead of spending time with me. When I confronted her about it, she downplayed it, saying she wanted to make the most of this time because she would probably never live with them again. Typical emotional manipulation, elderly parents, limited time, and the classic guilt trip. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law can't stop meddling in my life. She's relentless. If she's not commenting on how I should dress better, she's reminding me to eat healthy and go to the gym. I understand staying in shape is important, but the way she says it makes me want to throw her out the window. One day I was in the kitchen making spaghetti with sausage. She came in, took something out of the fridge, and looked at my food like it was poison. Then she slid in a comment about how I could improve my diet because I was getting a little soft in the middle. She should have softened up in the middle herself. Then, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, she said, "If you took better care of yourself, maybe you could keep up with Chelsea." She looked at me with that expression like I was some sort of charity case. I heard her tell Chelsea, "Why doesn't she spend more time in the gym? People might think you're her daughter." Chelsea quickly shut her down, but the damage was done. I'm not a skinny guy, but I'm not obese either. Yes, Chelsea looks younger than she is, but that doesn't give her mom the right to insult me. When I mentioned this to my wife, she downplayed it, saying her mom meant well, that she just wanted me to be healthy. I'm not stupid. I know exactly what she's doing. She's never respected me, and now she's making sure I feel it every day. The tension in the house is unbearable. For the past few weeks, Chelsea and I have been arguing constantly. I admit I'm frustrated and angry, and I probably start more fights than usual. But can you blame me? Every day, I come home to a house that doesn't feel like mine, to a wife who puts her parents above me, to a mother-in-law who reminds me at every opportunity that I'm not good enough. And just when I thought the hell was about to end, Chelsea dropped the bomb. My in-laws decided to renovate their house to make it more accessible for old age. New floors, handrails, a special bathtub, wider doors, basically a complete remodel. It will take months, and they expected me to let them live here until it was ready. That was the last straw. I didn't care if they were in the living room listening. No way. I couldn't stand them for another day, and now she was talking about months. Chelsea tried to calm me down, saying, "I know it's frustrating, but they have nowhere else to go, and I can't kick them out. They only have me." I responded, "Listen, they can't stay here. If you can't do it, I'll take care of it. You need to find them somewhere else because I can't take another day of this." She tried to defend herself, saying, "Your mom stayed with us for a month last year." It wasn't even remotely the same. My mom lives in another country and came for medical reasons. We hadn't seen her in 5 or 6 years, and it will be a long time before she comes back. Her parents, on the other hand, show up whenever they feel like it. The argument was horrible, but in the end, she agreed to find them a temporary place. Over the next few days, she started looking for nearby apartments, and I told myself I just had to hang in there a little longer. But in the middle of all this, her mom pushed me to the limit. I came home and my recliner was gone. I asked Chelsea, and she had no idea. So I went to my mother-in-law. She shrugged and said, "It was old and worn out." I threw it away. I lost it. I yelled at her with all my strength, "That was my chair. You shouldn't have touched it without my permission." You know what she did? She laughed. "Oh, please, it was just an eyesore. I did you a favor?" I went to my room and waited for Chelsea to come home from work. As soon as she walked in, I exploded. "I want them gone now." She looked at me with tearful eyes and said, "I can't kick them out, love. They're my parents." I shouted, "And this is my house." I've been patient, but I don't even feel like I live here anymore. She asked for another week, saying she needed time to find them a place. I told her, "It has to be now. If you don't kick them out, I'm leaving. No more waiting, no more next week. Now. She went silent, staring at me, then left the room and called me irrational. We haven't spoken since. And the worst part? She doesn't even seem affected. She's happily chatting with her parents, laughing as if nothing happened while I'm here feeling like a stranger in my own house. So far, I've put up with it because I didn't want to destroy a decades-long marriage over something silly, but this is destroying my mental health. I don't know how much longer I can take it. Edit for those who complain about me saying all these nasty things about my in-laws. They're jokes. And even if they weren't, I think they've earned it. Some people are so sensitive. We'll update too. I'm getting a divorce from Chelsea. Yes, we've reached this point. I tried to be patient. I tried to hold on. I tried to find a solution, but now I see it was all in vain. After that fight, I spent the night awake, unable to close my eyes with my mind running in circles. But what bothered me the most wasn't just the lie. It was Chelsea's complete indifference. She wasn't even considering my side, only her parents. I had considered her parents far more than I ever should have. The next morning, without saying a word, I took my car and drove 2 hours to my in-laws' house. I needed to see with my own eyes what was really going on, and what I found made every minute of that drive worth it. There was another family living in my in-laws' house. You might think they were squatters who had broken into an abandoned house, but when I looked closer, no, they weren't intruders. They were living there legitimately. The curtains were up, the lights were on, there were kids' toys on the porch. Nothing in that house suggested it was being remodeled. I had made that trip before, so I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I knocked on the door to ask who they were. A man in his 30s opened the door and looked at me curiously. I introduced myself and asked who he was. His response told me everything I needed to know. He was the tenant. I asked if the house was under renovation. He looked at me like I was crazy and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about. We've been living here for weeks. We rented this house from Mrs., my mother-in-law's name, for 5 years. They rented out their house and lied to my face, saying it was under renovation. They were using me." I thanked the man, turned around, and walked back to my car feeling like a complete fool. So, this is what had been going on behind my back. It was all a lie. They never intended to come back. It was all planned. They had used me as their damn backup plan. And on top of that, they took my beers. I drove back in silence. 4 hours, 2 hours there, and 2 more back, seething inside. I could have played heavy rock music the whole way. It was the perfect soundtrack for what I was feeling. The worst part is that this lie wasn't just from my in-laws. Chelsea had to know. I no longer saw her as someone caught between her husband and her family. No, she was part of the plan. She had been playing me all this time, and I was blind enough not to see it. When I got home, I slammed the door. Chelsea was in the kitchen, laughing and chatting with her mom as if nothing was wrong. She barely looked at me until I walked straight to her and shouted, "Want to tell me why the hell there's a family living in your parents' house?" She went pale, completely confused. "Wait, you drove all the way there?" I said, "Yes, I did." "I needed to see with my own eyes if you were lying to me, and surprise, you were." She tried to grab my arm. "Let's talk in private." I immediately pulled away. "There's no more privacy in our lives. You manipulated me into letting your parents stay in my house indefinitely." She was speechless and looked at her mother for support, and there she was, my mother-in-law, sipping her tea as if none of this affected her. And to top it off, she had the audacity to smile and say with a sigh, "It was only a matter of time before he found out. I told you to tell him earlier." Then, adding more salt to the wound, she said, "God knows why you're so afraid of him. You should be grateful that you stayed with him." Chelsea tried to intervene, but there was nothing she could say to fix this. I thought, if there was any doubt before about my wife being in on this with my in-laws, it's gone now. She had planned, manipulated, and executed the whole thing behind my back. I looked at her one last time and said, "You betrayed my trust. I'm done." I walked to our room, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing my things. Chelsea followed me and started arguing. "You're exaggerating." "Exaggerating? Your parents rented their house and lied to me while they settled into mine, and you allowed it. And you think I'm exaggerating? I was the last to find out they were moving in here. She tried to stop me as I was leaving. She grabbed me hard by the arms and whispered, "Don't do this in front of them." I pulled away and left. I checked into a hotel. A week passed. No calls, no messages, nothing. Her mom had her completely under control. She probably said, "Don't indulge him too much. He'll come crawling back." A week later, Chelsea finally wrote to me, "Come back. We need to talk." I replied immediately, "I won't return until your parents leave." Her response was instant, this time with a voice message. "That's never going to happen, so get used to it." That was the end. The next day, I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. I gave him all the details, and he told me that in a month she'd receive the papers. Yesterday, I went back to the house to pick up my things. When I walked in, my mother-in-law had a satisfied grin. She looked at me like she was saying, "I told you he'd come crawling back." I had no idea that I wasn't there to stay. I was just picking up what was mine. I went straight to the bedroom. Chelsea followed me and started attacking me. "I told you not to make a scene in front of them. Now, because of you, my mom thinks I'm a doormat in this marriage." I didn't say a word, just kept packing. "Now come apologize in front of them so we can end this." I laughed in her face and kept packing. She took a deep breath and asked, "How long are you going to keep this up?" I didn't even look at her. I just replied, "It's over. I've already filed for divorce. The movers will be here tomorrow for the big stuff." I hadn't actually hired anyone, but I wanted to add some drama to what I was saying. I wanted her to know I was serious because I was. She laughed and shook her head. "You're joking." I closed the suitcase, looked at her, and winked. "You'll find out soon." Chelsea started repeating, "You can't be serious. How can you divorce over something like this?" She tried to stop me again, begging me to sit down and talk, but I was already done with the talking phase. She tried to grab me once more, and again I pulled away and left. This time, she was crying. Her mom intervened. "Let him go. Chelsea's always been dramatic. He'll be back in a week. They'll hand her the papers soon." More than for Chelsea, I'm waiting to see the look on her mom's face when her bubble bursts. They rented out their house and thought they could stay in mine forever. They were wrong. I'm taking back my house. I'm taking back my life. There will be more updates soon. Update 3, Chelsea received the divorce papers, and I imagine the scene wasn't pretty, but I can only imagine it based on her calls. As soon as she had the papers in her hands, she completely lost it. Within minutes, my phone started exploding. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, one after the other, flooding my screen non-stop. They were things like, "What the hell is this? Are you serious?" At first, I left her on red. I wanted to see how far her desperation and chaos would go. I knew she wasn't ready to accept what was happening. Not yet. Then came the emotional manipulation. I didn't know it would go this far. I was just trying to be a good daughter. I thought our bond was strong enough to get through this. It was such a predictable speech, so empty of any sense of responsibility, that I just laughed while reading her message. When I finished seeing her attempts to make me feel guilty, I blocked her. That's when she showed up at my office. She breezed past the receptionist like she owned the place, barged into my office, and slammed the door behind her. "Are you really doing this? Are you divorcing me because of my parents?" It took me exactly 1 second to correct her. "I'm not divorcing you because of them. I'm divorcing you because you lied, manipulated, and let them take control of my life without a second thought. I'm divorcing you because you took me for granted." She was crying and begging me to find a way to change my mind. I felt so alone after our daughter went to college. I was facing empty nest syndrome, and my parents were alone too. We all thought it would be better to be together. That was her justification. And where was I in that decision? I looked at her in disbelief. "If you were feeling alone, or if you were having those thoughts, why didn't you talk to me? Why did you decide this without me?" Her face said it all. She'd never thought of that. It never crossed her mind that I was part of the equation because, in her world, her mom made the rules, and she just followed them. Then came the confession of how things had been. My mom told me to tighten the leash. She said you'd get used to them being here. She said you'd adapt just like my dad does, following whatever she says without questioning it. She said that was the secret to a long and happy marriage. That explained a lot, like why my father-in-law needed so many beers. I was speechless. I just stared at her, trying to decide whether I was more shocked or disgusted. That was her example of marriage? That I should just adjust and let her and her mother run my life however they wanted? It all made sense now. It wasn't just the presence of her parents, it was her mentality. She started crying harder, trying to offer some kind of apology or justification. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have put you first. Please, give me another chance. I responded, You don't get it, do you? It's not just one thing. It's everything. Your mom has disrespected me all the time, and you've done nothing to defend me. Not only that, you hid something as serious as them moving in with us, and you thought it was okay. Do you really think I'd be fine when I found out and wouldn't say anything, like, your dad just drinking another beer to drown my misery? She responded, I was scared. Okay, scared of disappointing my parents, scared of upsetting my mom. I thought I was doing the right thing. And now you're scared of losing me. But you lost me the moment you chose them over me. That meant the fear of losing me wasn't strong enough compared to the fear of losing her parents. She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. Don't do this! Don't throw away 20 years of marriage over something this stupid. I stared at her. You threw it away first. Now please leave. For the first time, she realized it was the end. No more pleading, no more excuses. The process is still ongoing, but in a few months, she will be nothing but my past. And honestly, this was something that should have happened a long time ago. Update 4. I've been asked for an update on my story, as if there's no tomorrow, especially with the divorce finalized, including the separation of assets. I guess this is the best time to do it. No, my ex-wife accepted the divorce, which made things easier, except for the house. We had to decide who would keep it, or whether we would sell it. This is where I got a bit petty, but I think it was justified. I always wanted to keep the house. There are several reasons for that. I liked it, I had my things, like my tools, I liked the neighborhood and the neighbors, and it wasn't too far from my work. So my plan was to buy her share and move back in. But it's not like my ex-wife and my in-laws could go back to living in their house. They have a 5-year lease with the tenants. While my ex couldn't afford to buy my share of the house, her parents could. That's why their counteroffer was that they would buy my house. This is where I got petty, because I thought, if I can't live in my house, neither will they. So I told her no. If there was no way I could buy her share, we'd have to sell it. That led to months of negotiations. In the end, they agreed to sell me their share, and yes, it wasn't just my ex-wife who made the decision. I'm sure of that. As for the rest, the divorce was pretty standard. I didn't have to pay spousal support, and my daughter is old enough not to need child support. During these months of negotiations, I know my in-laws tried to get their house back, but a lease is a legal document that can't just be broken like that, and they learned that the hard way. They tried to annul it with a lawyer, but all they achieved was that the tenants got several months of free rent. To avoid making the update too long and to tell you where they're living now, my ex-wife and my in-laws had to use all their money to buy a new house. My in-laws had to take out a new loan to cover part of the purchase, and this is exactly why I didn't want to leave them my house. I didn't want them to get away with their plan of living in my house while collecting rent from theirs. Not only are they not getting rent from their old house, but now they have to pay a new mortgage. For people their age, a mortgage isn't exactly convenient. On top of that, my ex-wife's credit card debt made the rates and amounts even worse for her, which prevented her from buying my share of the house. As for me, the bank was pretty good about giving me the loan to buy her share, so I have nothing bad to say about the bank. In my case, they've been lifesavers. That's basically what has happened overall. Not much else to add at this point. Edit. I've been asked about my daughter's reaction to the divorce and everything that's happened, so I'll add this here. My daughter was really angry with her mom for what she did. Let's just say she's not too fond of her grandparents either. My mother-in-law also had a habit of making comments about her weight and appearance, which obviously caused resentment in my daughter. Still, she maintains a relationship with her mom. Even though I don't want any contact with my ex, I would never force my daughter to choose between us. However, something funny she told me is that my ex-wife has started dating again, but she constantly complains to my daughter that living with her parents at 45 isn't exactly a winner's magnet. She may look good for her age, but the best men have already been taken, and to top it off, her mom scares off the few who try to approach her.